Hello and welcome to this tutorial about modifiers in 3D Studio Max. Right. Modifiers are the way of doing anything in 3ds Max. We've already looked at creating objects, for example this box, and moving it around, transforming, rotating, scaling. So these were the basics of how to manipulate objects in 3ds Max, but now we're going to look into how to do nice complex things. And this is done in this second panel here. This is your modifier panel. Okay. Here you have all the parameters of the current modifier. Now, as we've just created this box, we only have box in our modifier stack. So that's all this has. This is the only thing we can do with this without adding another modifier. So by default we can increase the amount of polygons on our box. As you can see, it still retains the same shape. I was just pressing F4 there to toggle wireframe off and on, but we simply have more polygons inside our shape, creating this form. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here to add a modifier. Now all of these do different things. Now I'm not going to show you all of them, but I will show you some of the most important ones and some of the easiest ones to understand. Now the easiest to get your head around modifiers would be bend. Okay, you can see that our modifier stack, which by the way is, I believe, infinite, well, as close as you can get to infinite, you can have any number of modifiers on here. Now this is on top of the box, and we have new parameters. So if we click on box, there are the box parameters, and bend has its own parameters right here. So we'll just change that. And as you can see, it has bent our box. So just changing things there. We can change the direction we want to bend it, and on which axis we would like to bend it. So this is how we create complex changes in our model. Okay, so let's just bring that back to Z. I quite like the look of that. And we're going to add another modifier, which will be the taper modifier. Now I'm just going to add a taper here. That's quite nice. As you can see, we still have the bend from before, but we've added a taper to it. So add a curve. Okay, well, I'll pop that there. Now, the order of these modifiers really does matter. So if I were to hold down and drag taper to underneath bend, then taper would have been done first, and that taper would then have been bent, which is completely different to the alternative. Now the best thing about modifiers in 3D Studio Max is that they are non-destructive. If we just wanted our bend back, we could hide that taper, or even just right-click it and delete. So everything that we do, we can just hide or delete, and we can get our original box back. So everything is non-destructive and modular. Okay, beautiful. Now, these were some quite simple deformation modifiers here. A more complex deformation modifier would be the FFD, which you look here, has a set of points, and you can modify it by selecting points in the lattice. Points to control points, sorry, my bad. By grabbing control points and affecting them. So we might want to do this here. We'll move that out. Move this up. Now notice we're not actually dragging the vertices of the model here. What we're dragging is a lattice that surrounds it. So all of these deformations are approximate. They're not exact. And they are all non-destructive. So we can get rid of them at any time. So I'm just going to do that there. And then do that here. Okay, perfect. Brilliant. Now, there we go. I'll just pop this inside here. That's very nice. Now, another one that I'm going to put on top of here is PolySelect. And this is quite a useful one, because with PolySelect we can select these polygons, and by itself PolySelect does absolutely nothing of use. But what it does allow you to do is select these faces, and only these faces, to be used by a future modifier, such as Face Extrude. So as you can see, inside of Face Extrude, I'm pumping up the amount here, and it's only affecting the polygons that were selected in the PolySelect. Okay. No. There we go. And if we were to add another one here, that selection carries on unless you get rid of it. So we're going to use the melt modifier here and just melt that down a bit. Just going to change the gizmo. You can access the little left arrow here. You can access the different elements of each modifier. So I've put the gizmo on the ground here, and we'll see how that changes the melt. And you see, so it melts it properly on the floor instead of in the air as it was before. Okay. Now if we were to have gone into Face Extrude, and after Face Extrude used another PolySelect, but not selected anything, this melt would have affected the entire object. So you can see that right now, without this PolySelect, it's still keeping the PolySelect from the first one and only affecting these faces. But if I were to select nothing here, it's melting the entire object. Perfect. Okay, I'm actually going to keep just this part melted here. By the way, do have some caution when using the melt modifier. It just creates some very nasty geometry. Like that's very nasty. Things are going inside themselves. It's not nice. So just use it with care. That's doable. Okay, so after the melt modifier, we're going to look at mirror, which is incredibly useful. I'm actually going to pop this PolySelect above, so that after melt, these faces are no longer selected. So we can do whatever we want and it'll affect the entire object. So mirror, and what mirror does is it mirrors the entire object. So you can see here how it's mirrored on this axis, and obviously you can change the axis. You can offset it, and best of all, you can create a clone, which is what it's mostly used for. So we can create a clone here of our object. going to use a turbo smooth now, which is also very often used. There we go. That is a turbo smooth. What it does is it just subdivides your entire model. Let's get the isoline display up. These were the original amount of polygons you had, and it has times those polygons by 4. It's just subdivided them in order to give more definition, smoothness, just a bit more detail in your model. Okay, perfect. Now that we have subdivided it, added more information, added more polygons, what we can do is we can ProOptimizer, there we go. We can bring that down. Now, if you remember correctly from a previous lesson, these triangles always existed, they were just invisible, because every polygon is in reality, every square is in reality 2 triangles. Every polygon is created and made up of triangles. All ProOptimizer does, it makes those triangles visible to us rather than just the machine, and when you press calculate, it calculates how many there are and allows you to tone down the definition of your model whilst keeping the shape. So you can see here, just from doing that, we have we've slightly altered the shape, but not too much. But what we've done is we've gotten rid of a good half of all the polygons in the 3D model. Which, if you're working for mobile games or anything that is sensitive to the poly count, it's very important to do this. But I will warn you that once you've used a ProOptimizer or something similar, you can't really model well with your character anymore, because these are very hard to deal with. You can't model on this sort of topology that goes everywhere. Before, it was nice and orderly. You can do a lot to that. But this is quite messy. You're not going to be able to do much to that afterwards. Okay, and now the most important modifier of all, it is the Edit Poly. Now I'm going to create an entire video about the Edit Poly modifier because it really is that important. Now it gives you the options to select via vertices, via edge, via face, via element, so this or this, and also via, let's just get rid of that, via whatever that is called, border I think it's called, which just gets, I mean, you can see here that it will not select anything. This is just where you see an edge that is not attached to another polygon, so an open edge, and we can just press cap down here, and it will cap that edge. A very nasty cap, I might add. So let's just get rid of this edit poly. Let's get rid of this ProOptimizer. As you can see, getting rid of the ProOptimizer has restored the beautiful topology that we had before. I'm going to put, after this PolySelect, I'm going to put the Edit Poly, because that means that everything that we do to this will be mirrored. Yes, I needed to remember to put the PolySelect after, so the Edit Poly is not selecting. So everything that we do to this one here, it is doing the same to this one over here, because the mirror is above the Edit Poly. So you can see here, get rid of Turbo Smooth. That's what that yellow cage is. It's just showing us where the real polygons are at this Edit Poly level, not up top. So There we go. And with Edit Poly, we can do almost everything. You will spend, if you're a modeler, you will spend maybe 90% of your time within an Edit Poly. Here we can, I'm getting rid of this smoother. Yeah, I'll get rid of it for now. Edit Poly, yes. Here we can extrude, as we did with the other modifier. We can select there. We can chamfer. We can, I'm going to select all these edges, and I'm just going to connect them. And with that connection, I'm going to squeeze it. So we can manipulate the entire object from within an Edit Poly modifier. As I said, I will create an entire video on the Edit Poly modifier, so I'm not going to explain it all now. But let's go with a turbo smooth, and that looks like absolutely nothing. I know, I wasn't actually creating something. Anyway, this was all of the modifiers. As we can see, that they are all modular, so if we go deleting them, we will eventually get back to the box. And in fact, if I go back to bend, because it's at the very beginning of our stack, this changes things completely. So whilst you're not destroying anything, if you have enough modifiers on top of your initial modifiers, it's best not to change these ones at the very bottom, because they will affect everything above. So, but if we go deleting them, we can see that we never really got rid of our initial cube. So it's a completely safe way of modifying and modeling, so you can always get back to your original parts. Okay, hopefully that's explained quite nicely what modifiers do, how they work. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much.